Hi, this is Paul, and I am obviously still in Venice. And just the way the trip rolls, I've had a little bit of time to listen to some stuff. I've listened to the Alex O'Connor, Jonathan Peugeot conversation. I'm currently in the middle of the Alex O'Connor, Bart Ehrman conversation on Gnosticism, which I've found very, very interesting. And then the thought occurred to me about the relationship between Alex O'Connor's posture with respect to, we got a lot of gulls here, and it's funny. My daughter was walking down the street and had something in her hand that she had a piece of pizza that she was eating, and she's walking down the street, and this gull came swooping down and knocked it out of her hand, and another gull tested one of my sons, but my son put up more of a fight against the gull. So yeah, when you come to Venice, beware the gulls. And then my son also saw a mother gull training its young how to swap food and to steal food. So it's quite amazing what these birds can do. Anyway, back to Bart Ehrman, Alex O'Connor, and Ayaan Hirsi Ali. So if you followed any of my Romans Sunday school, when I was doing Sunday school, I talked about the great puzzle. And the great puzzle is the question of this world. How can we account for the shape of this world? Now, of course, the rise of, let's say, the secular story of creation, or the materialist story of creation, which again is one worldly. Yesterday in my video, I talked about how I think the tension between the two worlds is what is so generative of religion. It'll be interesting to see, as John Vervaeke continues his Silk Road with Neoplatonism, to what degree the tensions within Neoplatonism, because there is definitely a two worlds tension within Neoplatonism, and it'll be interesting to see the way that John sort of exercises that into one world. Anyway, so there's the great puzzle, because we wonder, how can we make sense of this world? And one piece of, I always phrase it in that, one sense of this world is glory. And if you look behind me, I woke up this morning and we didn't sort of have this cloud cover that we have right now. The sky was bright blue, the sun just came up, and the light was striking these old buildings in Venice, and it was just glorious. You could see all the way out to the lagoon, you could see the island, you could see the mountains in the background, you could see the large container ships. I could look around at this Airbnb. We have windows on a number of sides, and we have these, it's a fairly tall building, so we have these amazing vistas of the city, and it was just glorious. So on one hand, how can this world be filled with so much good and glory? And on the other hand, how can this world be filled with so much pain and suffering? Yesterday, my son Jared and I were taking that walk over to St. Mark's, and I plan to go there again today. I didn't go inside yesterday, and I want to get inside the church. But we're taking this walk to St. Mark's, and there was pickpockets are a big topic. And there's signs about the pickpockets, et cetera, et cetera. When I was in Rome, we talked to a woman who was managing the Airbnb, and someone asked her about the pickpockets, and she said, yeah, when she first moved to Rome, because she wasn't from Rome, when she first moved to Rome, she lost 2 cell phones to pickpockets. It really made her angry, and then she figured out that the pickpockets were Roma, and she sort of figured out some of their tricks, and so now when she gets on the metro, the subway, she can spot them right away, and she hasn't been stolen from pickpockets. So that was just a little clue about the Roma and pickpockets. And then Jared and I were walking through. Venice is like this huge maze, and we're walking through this maze, and we're in this little area, and about maybe a 16-year-old boy turns to a girl and starts pointing at her and saying in English again and again, I see you, I see you, I see you. And it's probably a 13-year-old girl. She's got a satchel on her because you need a place to put the stuff, and usually they have something draped over an arm. In this case, they're having sort of a partially opened umbrella. And the little girl just sort of, now she's trying to get away, trying to hide somewhere. And some people say, well, maybe that was a setup. Maybe he was in on it. Maybe, who knows? I didn't get pickpocketed. But she was about 2 people in front of me, about 4 or 5 feet away. And then later on, my son and I went through that same way on our way back home, and she was sitting down sort of in exactly the same spot with her half-open umbrella, and she was just kind of looking around. And then a little bit later, I saw her get together with another little girl about her age. Same deal, half-open umbrella, satchel, and, you know, they're clearly sort of working this area. And, you know, in sort of a Dickinsonian's way, they probably set out in the morning, and they're told to go out and, you know, bring stuff back for the family. And so they go out and they pickpocket, and then they come back, and so on and so forth. And you can find videos, TikToks, YouTube shorts about pickpocketing, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, you know, you might look at the life that I lead, which is, you know, absolutely glorious in many ways. Richard Rowlands asked me the other day, you know, where do you want to be 5 years from now? And I said, I'd be absolutely happy being exactly where I am 5 years from now. Now, maybe that's because I have little ambition, but, you know, I love my children, I love my church, I love my home, I love my wife. I love all of these things. And now I've had an opportunity to do something like I never thought I would ever have, which is, I've been to Europe. This is my 3rd trip to Europe. My father never made it to Europe. I doubted I would ever go to Europe. And we're having this amazing vacation/wedding in Italy, and seeing all of these churches, and being in Venice, and having, you know, we were in Milan, we were in Tuscany, we were in Florence, we were in Rome. I got a chance to spend a day at Pompeii. I mean, it's just been a vacation of a lifetime. It's been glorious. I had a chance to go to Australia and and snorkel at the Great Barrier Reef. Did that before the pandemic, and my friend Warren Mills, and the little event that we did out there. And I'll have the chance to go and do an event in my friend Mark Van Heitzma's church up in Olympia, Washington, coming up next month with Nate Heil. And, you know, I live this wonderful, glorious life. I enjoy good health. I enjoy good relationships. I've made so many new friends through YouTube. It's a glorious life. And then you compare my life, let's say, to this little girl who is being told to go out by her family probably every day and see what she can lift out of bags from tourists here in the streets of Venice. And so the great puzzle is that we have this world of amazing glory and this world of unspeakable cruelty. And the question is, how can we account for this world? And so, you know, it's a really good conversation between Bart Ehrman and Alex O'Connor, and I'm really enjoying it. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I listened to some of Elon Musk and Jordan Peterson. They didn't necessarily, I haven't listened to all of it. It's a long conversation. I've got it saved on my phone for the airplane back home. But accounting for the world. And so that's where sort of the Gnostics come in, because of course the Gnostics had this idea of, well, it's the two worlds. It's the upper register. It's, you know, back when I was doing all of this, it's spirit, heaven, eternal versus material, earth, physical, and the idea of escape. And of course, there have been strong themes of escape in Christian theology. And again, I think part of the reason Christianity succeeds is that it's so flexible on many of these accounts. It's so malleable. Now, when I think about Alex O'Connor's conversation with Jonathan Pageau, what was that conversation about? In many ways, I think Alex O'Connor is basically talking out the fact that he finds the story of the Bible not necessarily uncompelling. Jonathan Pageau keeps trying to bring him back to the idea of, no, that story in the Bible is describing a world the way it is. And Alex O'Connor keeps coming back, but couldn't a better God have done it a different way? Couldn't a better God have created Eve so that she wouldn't fall? And I remember having these kinds of ideas as a child, you know, being immersed in the story and thinking about it. And so just watching the tension between Alex O'Connor and Jonathan Pageau with respect to that conversation, And then I thought of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who, you know, in some ways, well, she's had a remarkable life too. Of course, born in Somalia, if I get the details right, born in Somalia, raised in Kenya, and then is there somehow swept into the Muslim Brotherhood, going to be arranged to marry someone, escapes that, goes to the Netherlands, discovers a whole new world. And this is where sort of the definition of world shifts. And the definition of world is always sort of transjective between myself and this environment out there that I push against. I think about Jordan Peterson's definition of truth in that sense, that I'm always negotiating between my experience of this world and then this world that impinges upon me, and often, and I think Jordan Peterson is right in a lot of how he frames this and sets this up, the suffering that we see around us. And so in that sense, let's say the gyroscope, the navigation, the implicit sense-making that Alex O'Connor and Ayaan Hirsi Ali are doing, they're both working to account for the world, but the definition of world between Alex O'Connor and Ayaan Hirsi Ali is different. And this is where Ayaan Hirsi Ali explaining to Richard Dawkins, I choose to believe, is so poignant, and I think is the definition of faith so often given by the celebrity atheist was such a poor one, believing without evidence. And I think when you look at, let's say, the emerging faith of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she is saying, no, what created the world, I've seen good worlds and bad worlds, and what created the better world was the Christian story and belief in the Christian God. And so now she is choosing to believe that. Now this sort of gets connected with some of my earlier thoughts, and I'll continue to integrate these thoughts as I continue to also think about the Italian Renaissance. I mean, Petrarch was an exile from Florence, and in many ways he was very much team authenticity, in that he saw the world and in many ways wanted to create a new one. The Italian Renaissance figures that sort of launched this are so interesting in how they launch and what they do. So then I see Alex O'Connor saying, no, I can imagine a better world than the one we're living in. And Jonathan Peugeot keeps saying, yeah, but can't you see how the world, as it's described in Genesis, is the world we're living in? And in there's sort of a switch, because the atheist move is always, you Christians are living in this fantasy world. This is the real world. And there's sort of an inversion in the Peugeot-O'Connor conversation, because Jonathan Peugeot keeps saying, well, doesn't this adequately describe and actually describe the world we're living in? And Alex O'Connor says, no, I want to live in a better world. And in some ways, Ayaan Hirsi Ali is on the other end of that and saying, understanding the transjective nature of the world, saying, if I have a say in the world I live in, then I am going to choose to be a Christian. And so I think that movement is indicative of a lot of the Christian conversions that I've seen. I've also got queued up Alex O'Connor's, it's going to be an Alex O'Connor day. My flight home, I think that the overall day is like 24 hours. I'm going to try and sleep as little as possible because we get into California, if everything goes well, late in the evening. So I hope to go to bed and, be ready to start life in California time again soon, because I know things are stacking up for me. I also got to work on the sermon on the plane. Can't forget that. So anyway, I think in the movement of these individuals, we're seeing this return to Christianity and a return to faith, but again, it's a different faith. Part of what's been striking me about looking at the residue is too dismissive, looking at the remains, the artifacts of the faith, the medieval faith, and then the Renaissance faith, part of what's so remarkable about Europe is that Jordan Peterson once characterized Europe as a museum, and I can very much see why he made that characterization, because a place like a lot of the places that I've been staying and living, you know, when you go to these Airbnbs that are usually located in these tourist areas of town, these are old historic buildings. When I was in the Netherlands last time, I stayed with Ferdy and Cassidy, and their house is quite new. So it was interesting staying in a new house as opposed to, say, an older house in the Netherlands, and now in Italy staying in some very old places. And the Hilton that I stayed in Milan was a very old building that was sort of redone, but they kept some of the frescoes and used those frescoed rooms for the dining halls. Just noticing sort of Europe as a way of sort of connecting us to the old, and again, sort of this transjective nature of reality. And seeing Ayaan Hirsi Ali sort of on the other side of Alex O'Connor. You know, I don't know if Alex O'Connor will become a Christian. It's going to be interesting. He spoke about the fact that when he was in grade school, there was a play, a rendition of Jesus Christ Superstar, and he went to a Christian school, which isn't unusual, obviously, in the UK. But his brother played Jesus, and anyway, the Alex O'Connor Bart Ehrman conversation is cool. But just thinking about, okay, and as a pastor, when I, obviously through YouTubes and podcasts, you only get a tiny little window into people's lives, which is why I always do the Randos conversations in the way that I do. Where's Alex O'Connor's a young guy? Where's he going? It's interesting. It's fun to watch, which I think is part of what makes YouTube and podcast and the strange view of personalities interesting. What will become of Jordan Peterson? What will become of John Vervaeke? You know, when I look at myself and Jonathan Peugeot, I see us as probably staying exactly where we are. Well, we'll see what happens with the Christian Reformed Church. But, and I see that as being part of what being a Christian does. It roots you, it fixes you, it gives you a stable identity in a world of turmoil and change. It gives you a very old story to live in that has been battle tested to the extreme. There's a weather vane on top of a little dome that's right down the way. There's all these bell towers around. I don't know if we're close to the hour. No, probably not going to get any bells in this video, but it's been delightful being here. And again, I guess I should probably summarize before I turn it off, because I ramble so much. Alex O'Connor is trying to make sense of the world that we live in. Ayaan Hirsi Ali too. Ayaan Hirsi Ali says, I choose to believe. I see the world of the West and I say that it is a product of Christianity, and I see atheism as sort of like an AIDS-like virus that takes out the immune system of Christianity and makes people vulnerable to every passing whim of fancy. And what the Christian story and Christian church and Christian religion do is sort of moor people, gives them stability. Because again, that's where faith comes in, because again, our interaction with the world is by definition transjective, and having a sure place to stand, to be firmly rooted in the gospel, in the story of Jesus. I can see why Ayaan Hirsi Ali, suffering from all that she did, having suffered from the AIDS of new atheism, turns to faith and says, I choose to believe. I choose to believe. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to Alex O'Connor. He's young. He probably hasn't suffered much. We'll see what happens. So, I don't know, this might be the last of these type videos from Venice. I hope to get into the St. Mark's Church. I'll take this little camera and see if I can get some video from inside. For those of you who have been watching the travelogue videos on the membership section, I will probably make some of that footage unlisted and share it with the branding makers over on the Broken Clock Tower Discord, so that Chad and Grizz and Ups and a whole bunch of you, if you want to use some of that video for branding, you can play with it. It was interesting because Chad used a little bit of dash cam footage for branding in Sacramento, so I thought, boy, you could have fun with this. I used some of that double-decker bus video when I was in the UK for branding, and so I thought, yeah, this strange tourist world here could make for some interesting branding. So again, thank you to all the members who help support this channel. Thank you to all of you who watch, like, and subscribe. And like I said, might be the last take from Venice. Maybe I'll just give you a little learning to use this little camera better. Oh, turn around. There we go. It's this beautiful, beautiful city.